you there. Hi, my name is Edward, and today I'm going to talk about the process which led to macroeconomic problem in Japan. The U.S. subprime mortgage crisis was a nationwide banking emergency that coincided with the U.S. recession of December 2007 to June 2009. It was triggered by a large decline in home prices, leading to mortgage debt crisis and foreclosures, and the devaluation of housing-related securities. The financial crisis that started in the U.S. housing market triggered an unprecedented deterioration of the global economic condition in late 2008 and the first half of 2009. Japan, along with the other East Asian countries, had been relatively distant from the ground zero of the initial financial crisis triggered by the subprime loan problem in the United States. Japanese economy was relatively unharmed until the last quarter of 2008. Then, suddenly, a significant decline of foreign demand and the sharp appreciation of the yen's exchange rate hit the country, which had become so dependent to the export through the 2000s. Japanese economic stepped on its emergency brake in the fourth quarter of 2008 and the first quarter of 2009, resulting in an average negative GDP growth of less than negative 10% in the annual rate for this 6-month period. Before the crisis, Japan's foreign policy faced a difficult challenge. On the other hand, with an economic increasingly oriented toward East Asia, Japan had been seeking to promote regional initiatives, including ones that exclude the US, including China. China has also become a more formidable competitor, moving Tokyo to strengthen the US and the Japan alliance. Over the last decade, Japan's position in Asia and the world has shifted considerably. The Japanese economy has increasingly become oriented towards East Asia, with much of the country's manufacturing tied up in regional production networks. Reflecting this reality, Tokyo has sought to take a leadership position in regional initiatives, including ones that exclude its security patron, the United States. On the other hand, the rise of China has not only made that country an indispensable economic partner, but at the same time has also made it a more formidable competitor in political and military terms. Japanese banks and consumers, more generally, had much less debt than their counterparts in Europe and the United States. As a result, no major Japanese bank collapsed during the crisis, and some Japanese financial institutions were well placed to swoop in and purchase assets at greatly reduced prices as the crisis progressed. The Japanese yen soared in value during the later half of 2008 as international governments dropped interest rates, undermining the profitability of the carry trade through which many investors had a bet on interest rate disparities. By April 2009, however, sagging global demand had taken a toll on Japan's economy, nearly halving the country's exports and leading Tokyo into its first trade deficit in 30 years.
Hi, my name is Ella. So now we're going to talk about the microeconomic policies in Japan during the crisis. The Japanese economy faces a similar set of macroeconomic difficulty as many as developed Western economy. A high debt GDP ratio and extremely low interest rates. On these surveys, the Japanese problems are the worst among the developed economies. Its debt GDP ratio is the highest, and its short-term interest rate has been attached to the zero bound for 10 years. However, unlike the United States and some European countries, Japan is still running a significant current account surplus, and close to 95% of its government debts are held by domestic investors. Good news for the Japanese economy in the short run because the potential for a debt crisis is still remote, despite an extremely high level of debt outstanding. This is bad news in the long run because the Japanese are basically transferring the burden to future generations. Now, talking about the fiscal policy response to the global financial crisis. To fight deflationary pressure and sharply declining exports, the Japanese government took aggressive stimulus macroeconomic policies from the second half of 2008. Since the interest rate had been already close to the zero bound even before the global financial crisis, the burden of fiscal policy was inevitably higher than the other developed economies. The Japanese government worked out a total fiscal budget of approximately 26 trillion yen, including two supplementary budgets in FY 2008. The initial budget of FY 2009 and a subsequent supplementary budget. These budgets were worth around 130 trillion yen in terms of the size of the project. On December 8, 2009, Japan took budgetary steps amounting to 7.2 trillion yen, which were worth 24.4 trillion yen in terms of the size of the projects, to ensure emergency fund economy boosting measures for a secure and growing future economy. The national budget for FY 2010, which was passed in January 2010, saw a 4.2% increase in the general account compared with the previous fiscal year. As a result of these expansionary fiscal measures, Japan has marked a positive real GDP growth in the third quarter of 2009 that is greater than that of any other major countries. It will take some time to probably assess the effectiveness of its fiscal policy in 2009 and 2010 quantitatively. While the fiscal measures such as the subsidies for the purchase of energy-conserving home appliances, the so-called eco-point system, have definitely contributed to boosting the economy. It has been argued that the repeated fiscal stimuli and accumulating government debt since the late 1990s have significantly lowered the Japanese fiscal multiplier. On the other hand, in November 2009, the Japanese government and the Bank of Japan declared that they recognize deflation as a serious obstacle to the economy. Hence, it is difficult to claim that the Japanese economy is now surely on a self-sustaining path of recovery. Although having been overtaken by China in terms of the sheer size, at least on a price-adjusted basis, Japan still has the most productive and advanced economy in Asia. Long known for the quality and productivity of its manufacturing sector, Japan has nonetheless increasingly become a knowledge-based, post-industrial economy. Parts of the manufacturing sector remain highly competitive on world's markets. Of course, but manufacturing as a share of total production continues to decline as in all development economies.
My life be like, yeah. My life be like, yeah. My life be like.
Oh, hi. Hi, my name is Harrison, and I'll be talking about Japan's current economic state.
Japan is the third largest economy after America and China. It is so wealthy that its regions boast about the same economic heft as large countries. The entire economy of Brazil fits into the Kanto region that includes Tokyo, for example. Yet despite this wealth, Japan's economic growth has been largely stagnant over a period known as the two lost decades. America's GDP grew threefold during that time, while China soared After a short stint as Prime Minister in 2006 to 7, Mr. Abe he returned in 2012, calling for a bold three-plan of stimulus spending, monetary easing and structural reforms, the so-called three arrows of Abenomics. With the first arrow, the government splashed out 10 trillion yen, which is about $84 billion, to boost the economy. With the second arrow, the Bank of Japan agreed to swell its balance sheet, which in effect flushed capital into the economy. Japan's stock market cheered in actions, but a previous government had scheduled a consumption tax rise in April. When Abe went ahead with it, demand fell and GDP atrophied. This prompted Mr. Abe to delay the second part of a tax hike, due in 2015, calling into question his commitment to fiscal consolidation. Decades of almost no growth and heavy government spending to support the economy has left Japan with the highest public debt in the world, at close to 2.5 times the size of its economy and more than double that of industrialized countries. It makes the third arrows of structural reform critical, since only by removing anachronistic regulations and freeing companies to compete domestically and internationally can the country enjoy sustainable growth. It was precisely debt concerns that obliged Mr. Abe to push ahead with the first consumption tax hike despite the fact that it conflicts with its economic program. Thank you. So that concludes our video.